Okay. Hello, hello, hello. It's time again, once again, for PMO HotHouse, and we're just going to be letting people into the room here on the studio. Anybody who's watching us live on LinkedIn or on YouTube, yeah, we're good to go. Yeah, let's go for it, shall we? Yeah. Making sure you're in the right place. It is the last Friday of the month. It's the 29th of May, and we're here for another edition of
PMO HotHouse.
Indeed. Screen's not working, is it? Sorry, everybody. Hey, we're
No,
new
it was.
English.
Good noise, you say? There we go.
Whoosh, not so seamless. I'm going to blame it on the Northern Hemisphere and specifically in the UK for having a very hot week this week. I think we've kind of fried my brains anyway. But I'm here with Eileen and John. Hi, Eileen. And John,
Hello.
you?
I've seen more of my gardening this week than I've seen for a while.
And how are you, John?
I am wonderful. It's been a lovely week, lovely sunshine, and then lovely to be here with you throughout the week up on a Friday.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're going to be kicking off with you, actually, John, so don't go away. It is time for... It is. It's that time again when John takes over, like is the news at 9 or 10 or whatever. But it's the news at 12:17. Over to you, John. What have you got for us this month?
I'm sure it's the news at 9 or 10 in somebody's time zone out there today. So we've got a few bits and bobs today. Let's dive in. It's weird. Some months I feel I'm scrambling around and struggling to find things, and then other months there's tons of it, and I'm sort of trying to filter it all and smoosh ideas together onto slides. So let's dive in. We're going to start with the project management. Just start and end with the project management journal today. In fact, the first one we've got. Oh no, sorry, I've changed the order on these at the last minute. Apologies. We're going to start with the Pulse of the Profession from PMI. This is they put lots of press releases out around this. It's something they release every year that aligns with their conference season. But there is a page in there purely focused on the PMO, which is lovely with PMO focused stats in it. So yay, well done us. We get a mention. Their focus is slightly different every year. This year they're talking about what drives success in complex projects. And the bit I wanted to call out here was the fact that they are firmly of the belief, and their evidence from their Pulse of the Profession surveys reinforces it, is that having a PMO in place helps organizations and the projects within them manage complexity better. So a crucial thing for those PMOs that are out there and people we've spoken to at the PMO meetups that we've done last month and coming next month as well, where we constantly hear the concerns that PMO is seen as an overhead. This sets it very, very firmly in a risk reduction strategy. So the PMO is something that is reducing risk of projects, and if we're reducing the risk on the project, we're therefore saving the organization money. So it's just a nice little frame for you there. There's a number of things. I sort of looked at this initially and saw the headline figure of, well, with a PMO, extremely successful at managing complexity, was 63% versus 57 without. And my initial thought on that was, well, that's not a huge number. I'm a bit nervous about that one. I would have thought it would be bigger. But actually looking through, I relaxed a bit because of a few things. Firstly, every single measure and metric that they had showed positive, better numbers in organizations with a PMO versus those without a PMO. There wasn't anything the other way round, which was reassuring, which was good. They've advocated quite hard for it. There's a nice quote in there from them. A well-functioning PMO is the organizational mechanism through which the more mindset, which is PMI's mindset around project management, gets institutionalized. So big fans there, which is quite nice to hear. And the crucial thing is looking at the cost of a PMO function versus the cost of our projects. And it's actually a tiny investment compared with the amount of money organizations actually invest in the projects when you take into account the software, all the people, all the resources that are caught up with them, plus also the impact those projects have on the organization. So really for a very, very relatively tiny investment in real terms into a PMO, you get quite a substantial risk reduction for the organization. So that's a nice, pleasing read, reassures us that we're doing a good job, and hopefully there's enough in there to help you pitch and argue and advocate for your PMO being something that reduces risk to your projects, to the organization at a strategic level. You're saving the organization money rather than being a cost overhead. Right, on to the next one. So
Yeah.
I'll wait to see the slide before I say what it is, just in case I've muddled up the order again in my head. Right, so I had to put two things on here, but they went quite nicely together. Yes, I know I'm talking about AI again, but in my defense, when we do the meetups and everything around, even when we have no idea AI on the agenda, it's what PMO people end up talking about. So what I'm hearing is PMO people want to talk about and understand AI, which is why we're including it in. And there's two articles here that I've kind of pulled together. One is a report, the socio-organizational impacts of Gen AI on project management. It's heavy going. I will share the links, obviously, but key thing, it's a review of 35 different Gen AI in project management studies. And what it's arguing in there quite strongly is that any success for organizations taking on AI is alignment of thinking between the strategic layer, process level, and the people layer in the organization as well. We're seeing a lot of organizations that are focusing on giving tools to individuals. We talked about this last month with more studies and thought pieces that have come out where we're seeing individuals saying they're a lot more productive, but we're not seeing that at the level above, and that's because of the lack of alignment in the organizations. So the encouragement there is the call to action out of that one is really making sure we're thinking about this as organizational design when we're thinking about AI, not just as deploying yet another software tool. The other angle on this is at that where we've got the strategy, process, people levels. At the people level, very much is this Harvard Business Review article, where they're actually calling out the effects, the psychological costs of AI. So when you're rolling out AI, there's a lot of different forms that they're calling out on there. The cognitive impact of people, where people are saying, well, that sounds complicated, and rather than thinking about it, let's just throw it at AI and let AI try and figure it out rather than actually doing that thinking. So seeing cognitive decline, competency declines is a lot of that. Relatedness is an interesting one where we're actually seeing even some universities now are trying to put a lot of effort and money into actually encouraging students to talk to each other and peer review and peer bounce ideas around, because more and more people are just doing it with an AI. So you've got that increasing echo chamber rather than working with groups. There's a challenge of credibility with people that are using it. People, even if other people are using it as well, they will instantly seem to take a dim view of someone that's used AI in their work, which is interesting. So people are using it and also judging other people for using it all at the same time. But crucially, there's a couple of points at the end there that are worth highlighting for anyone who's involved in rolling out AI, or if you've got projects rolling out AI, is that we would tend to be focusing on the people that are using AI a lot, but actually in terms of the psychological debt, as this article describes it, the people that are hit hardest are, firstly, it's the occasional users that seem to be suffering a lot more than the daily users using it for complex tasks. So people that are all in seem quite happy with it. It's those that use it occasionally or touch on it, have it touching on their lives, seem to be the ones that are being hit hard with this psychological cost of adopting AI. And the other thing is, it's the junior people that are being hit hardest with that psychological debt and worry as well. So if you are rolling it out, there's two maybe specific user groups there that you might want to focus on, making sure they're being taken on a journey and supported with everything. So there's a few things there, and it's worth looking at some of those debts in a little bit more detail in that article, which I'll share the link for, because they all are worthy of considering as individual risks when you are thinking about how you apply those changes within your organization. And a red flag there, if your organization is viewing an AI deployment as just another tool rollout, then that should be raising alarm bells and should be something that you should be challenging on, because it needs to be all levels of the organization and something more systemic and organizational, rather than just here's another tool that people can play with. On to the next one. This was a big week, a big month for HS2. There were a couple of things landed. The Transport Secretary had to do their 6 monthly update to Parliament. And also there was yet another paper on the performance of HS2 delivered. This one very much focusing on the civil service for this one. A few things just to call out for those of you that aren't aware of HS2, not familiar with HS2, high-speed rail in the UK that has just expanded and expanded in terms of cost. Estimate in terms of billions in 2012 was 20.5 billion, then 27 in 2013, 44 in 2020, up to 54 in 23, 66 in 24. We're now at a range of 82 billion to just over 100 billion, and that's even after we're cutting things like the top speed of the railway and all those kind of things. So crazy goings on with that one. A few things probably that's just worth calling out, I think, on this one. The recommendations of the report are that actually organisations like these large projects must have an internal audit function that is well sourced and sophisticated. They call them out for not having that at all, relying on other government departments to do audit. So again, stressing the value, if you're a PMO that does assurance and governance as well, again, there's reference points here of calling out the importance of this to projects, as well as seeing what goes wrong if not. There's a real call out as well on the which draws on previous papers, which is basically fundamentally saying actually they focused on keeping things moving rather than doing what we know we should be doing, spending that time planning at the beginning, plan slow, build fast, actually getting it right at the beginning rather than dashing out there with a spade and a shovel and starting work. The other thing there, you've seen Stuttgart 21 there, which I was just drawing parallels with this. This was Germany's first fully digitized rail with a brand new unproven signaling system, which has had a similar, although much lower numbers journey, 2.5 billion up to over 11 billion now, with still no firm date set on that one actually going live. Both of these are novel projects, yeah, and novel projects always come with risk. We know that there's a degree of accepting that things do go wrong on novel projects. So I guess there's a few things to call out here for you. Firstly, with the novel projects that you've got in your organizations, are we genuinely planning before we build and spending the time on that planning? Where are you starting delivery ahead of actually doing design? And the other question is where you've got projects that have a high degree of novelty, something new and shiny. Are we asking those frank conversations in the organization? Is there a genuine advantage to us going with something novel and bespoke, something we're not familiar with? Or is this something that we should maybe do with tried and tested technology or something that's more in our comfort zone? Because novelty has a cost and quite often it hits hard because we're going into very unfamiliar territory. So a few things there for you. And the last one I just put on there just to think about is challenging some of these things up front. Is your PMO recognized for challenging those specs on things, or are you recognized more for keeping things moving? Because part of the problem here undoubtedly was getting moving fast before they'd fully thought everything through, and then the costs spiraled on both of these. So yeah, interesting ones to think about. And again, I'll share the links to the HS2 report there if you want to. If you're struggling to sleep in the hot weather, I promise you that will help you doze off at night. Last and final one is this one about where the projects come from. So this is not a big insightful piece, but I wanted to call it out because I do like the direction that this one is calling out. At the moment, everyone seems to be researching AI this, AI that, AI the other. So it's quite nice to see a call out here for more research and more understanding into the stuff that happens in the forming project stage. There's a lot in this piece that calls out the fact that as a project management profession, we focus all of our time on delivering projects, that doing the projects right, and nowhere near as much on understanding the are we doing the right projects and where do they come from and how do they form? I know there is stuff out there, but they're arguing there is nowhere near enough in that area. And the relative focus, there's a lot more on delivery than actually thinking about what we're doing in the first place. They've called out, so cost, this isn't a research piece, it's a call for more research into something. There's not some hard numbers for you to take away here, but there were a couple of interesting bits I pulled out. Firstly was this idea of 5 lenses to look at when you're shaping projects. They call these out in detail in there. I won't go into them all now, but a couple of things to pick out. Looking at your projects through the lenses of politics. Who are the people that are in power? What is the impact on them? What coalitions are forming around these projects, and what are the competing interests? Where we're thinking about projects to do the psychology around them. What decision biases do we know about? What steps have they taken to remove them? The planning fallacy, as we've just seen with the last two, as in we always believe we can estimate something accurately and it's always late and it's always over budget. And having an outside view on those of us asking those kind of questions. Marketing and strategy, kind of flipping the narrative of it being the market is set and strategy defines what projects we're doing. This is arguing that we should also be thinking about actually how can we define and shape the market and shape our projects from the project outwards. But also, if we do this project, what strategic direction could it be providing for our organization? What strategic options is it opening up longer term for us as well? So seeing the strategy link with projects as two-way rather than maybe one way downwards. And the last one is, which kind of almost feels at odds with our slow planning piece, but is not, is this piece about thinking about design thinking and visualization, bringing ideas to life early on. The trick here is to make sure that we're doing things at that stage that are genuine experiments or prototypes to help us understand it and uncover problems before we commit to the bigger things, rather than actually blindly starting work before we've designed it. And the two are very, very separate. One to watch out for, a pattern they call out, is escalation of commitment, where an idea gets talked about and people back and back and back at different layers through it, and you end up with something that is almost like the emperor's not wearing any clothes, where so many people up the chain have gone through and talked about something and committed to it, and that nobody feels they can quite back down. PMO is a very, very good team to be calling out those kind of obvious projects that may not be fully dressed. So a few things to look for there. Again, I'll share the links on these as well, but have a look at the 5 lenses, different perspectives for looking at emergent ideas through. Watch out for and call out that escalation of commitment, and encourage use of things like design thinking, prototyping to make ideas tangible and visible as early as possible, not just relying on PowerPoint and conversations between people. And that's it from me. I think those are the highlights for this month.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Some chitter chatter here that you're going to have to catch up on, John. I think you've poked the hornet's nest, which is fine, which is what it's all about, which is why if you join us here in the actual room of HotHouse, you can get involved in the chit chat. But a load of people that are watching us on LinkedIn, please do leave comments as well on that. Let's move on. Got quite a lot to get through as ever. Quick advert break, and just to let you know, today is the last day for you to have a go at our PMO conference ticket competition. It is our wonderful stickers that people love to get their hands on. We've had obviously people taking part in that, and it is the last day today. But if you want to have a go at it, you can have a look at our news page. It tells you how to get involved, but essentially give us your sticker, hashtag PMO sticker competition. We'll be picking the winners, and that means that we'll obviously be awarding some PMO conference tickets as well. So what's coming up? Also, we've got events before the conference, so it's not all conference. We've got Laura back with us on the 2nd of June, so one to check out later on in the day for that one. We are doing a rerun of a session that we did on International PMO Day in 3 different places, which we're going to talk about a little bit next. But again, we thought, why not do it again? And you'll be able to join us for that. And Johnny boy, you're going to be on a boat. Look at that lovely boat that you're going to be on. That's you in the Thames.
We are beautiful. Yes, come join us. We're going to be 10th of June on the Tattershall Castle, which is a pub boat right next to Embankment Station. Do come and join us. Look forward to seeing as many of you there as possible, and we can carry on some of the conversations that are happening in chat right now.
Okay, and we've done one of the we've done it a couple of times on that boat. It's a great venue, and hopefully the weather will be cracking. We've also, as you probably were aware, we ran a pilot training course, new training course, practical AI skills for the PMO. That went ahead and brilliant, sold out. Had to squeeze a few extra people in as well, but there is a new date for that, and we put it in the summer. Where hopefully you might be able to do a couple of days, but things may get a little bit quieter work-wise, who knows, but that's available now. We'll be putting some more stuff out there about what people thought about that particular course and what they took away from it, just to give you a bit more insight. And just finally, again, we are coming up to PMO conference, which is the 17th, 18th, and also added the 19th of June, which is Laura's session, 1-day course. Eileen, you did that last year. What did you think?
Well, it was amazing actually, and I'll be there again this year, because what was really good was kind of people, I think, went and thought, well, I'm going to sit and listen to Laura all day, but it was actually so engaging, and the energy in the room. We kind of thought, kind of third day after the conference would be a bit quiet, but there was a whole load of energy in the room, and it was just enough to kind of spur people on again and actually go back to the workplace with stuff that they could actually do, which was great. It's what we do it for.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, and then that's it from the advert break. So moving swiftly on, the parting of the curtains. Oh, what's it going to be about today? I've got a pretty easy one today because actually it's about International PMO Day, and both my esteemed colleagues on HotHouse were sharing the day. Eileen and John were both with us throughout the day, and we did a number of different things. Cracking day for it, lovely blue skies. We were in London doing a few different things. Here, what you can see on the screen is an event that both Eileen, I, and John did a little session at. John, what was your talk about when you were doing that at Arrows with their team for PMO International PMO Day?
We were talking about alignment. So we're talking about how quite often there's a couple of things. Talking about how often organizations will look at a maturity model like sort of P3M3 or OPM3 or those kind of things, and go through and see where they've got gaps compared with a maturity model, and then decide those things they need to do. Benefits management being the one that always is quite a common pattern. We need to do benefits management because we're not doing that, and there's a section for it. Whereas actually often that doesn't relate to what the business needs and that business alignment. So the focus was on actually looking at where the PMO should be aligned to the business. There's no point in being a level 5 at risk management if the organizational risk governance and risk appetite isn't understood and defined, because then you're kind of an outlier. So it's about looking at that balance of things and getting the right mix and getting the right balance with the organization. It's fun. It was a great team in the room as well. Really good conversations.
Yeah, there was, and again the AI popped its head up as ever. Plus, me and Eileen got to cuddle Digby the bear in the reception area. So what's not to love there? We then hot-footed it over to CGI. They again are in the walkie-talkie building. Many of you will probably know it as the Sky Gardens right up there on the top. They were doing something really interesting for International PMO Day. They've got, I think it was about 200 PMO people scattered across the country. And obviously had some of the people actually in their HQ in London. So we were doing a kind of virtual hybrid session, which I always find really weird. I couldn't get my head around it for ages, Eileen. It was you were just like, just talk.
There was rooms in the same building, weren't there? So there was another room along the corridor who were also involved.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Pop out for a minute and see them and go, oh, I've just seen you on the screen. It's very weird.
Very odd. But we throughout the day, Eileen and I had been doing the same kind of session, obviously to a different audience, which is the one that we're going to run again on the 10th of June, which was talking about, part of it was asking some questions to keep people engaged. One word that describes a great PMO. It's a classic, and just the number of different answers that you get, it just sparks conversation. It sparks people, having a bit of a laugh and a joke, putting some silly things up there, whatever it might be. But, for them to trying to do that kind of thing when it's remote as well, it worked for them. I just find it really, I prefer to be in the room, but, needs must. But yeah, it worked for them. And then we were off again to another session. Here's John. He is here with Lorna, who helped us host this one at Transport for London. John posing there with the buses. John, you did an opening up bit to this session, so we will talk.
That wasn't John. You got loads of prepped for that one.
It was a lovely surprise. Yeah, here's some slides.
The really interesting thing about John is you can give him a bunch of slides that he's never seen before, and he'll be guaranteed to be able to make sense.
We give it a go, don't we? Yes. And Lorna and I were waiting ages for buses, and then two came along at once, as you can see, which is no, it was a really, really good night. We talked about the because it was PMO. We're talking quite generally about the PMO, how PMO, the definition of a PMO, what different types of PMOs look like across organizations, the fact that we've got this idea of different levels in the organization where PMOs operate, and one of the sort of big things that I kind of say to anyone that listens, and is probably quite relevant when you look at some of the conversations I've seen on LinkedIn recently arguing that PMO is dead and transformation office is the way forward, is that I absolutely share House of PMO's view that PMO is a noun. It doesn't. We don't really worry about what the letters stand for. We all kind of know what a PMO is, whether your P is project or portfolio, whether you're office, officer, or anything. And we're talking about PMO as a noun, and we get together as a group of like-minded people to make organizations run smoother and deliver faster as a result. And that's kind of what we're about. And we do that whether we are transforming, whether we are valuing, and whatever else it may be that we do. But yeah, really, really good session. Lovely to catch up.
The interesting bit was there was about 40 people in the room, and we worked out that it was probably about 15 types of PMOs. Can you remember that? And I'm like saying, can you nail this down, please? I need to know this. Yeah, about 15 different types of PMOs. So it's interesting, isn't it, when you look from a perspective of doing a session like this, where you're talking about types of PMOs and things, just how different it can be, and the point was really well made. So 40 people, 15 different PMOs, plenty of poos and pots to keep Eileen sniggering at the back, and there'll be some more from Eileen shortly. But what I also wanted to do was just pull off some of the things that other people around the world were obviously supporting and doing things on International PMO Day. Here, PMO Global Alliance, so that's PMI's PMO group, but America heads up. They put out a poll and a load of little different bits and pieces. This one was from spotted this one. This is one of our corporate funders. I love this. This was on LinkedIn. From their company LinkedIn. What was it here?
My proudest moment at UKSBS has been helping to train our newest member of PMO and already seeing her thrive in her role and add massive value to the team.
My proudest UKSBS moment is becoming a senior PMO analyst.
My UKSBS proudest moment is being part of the CD apprenticeships. From day one at the workshop and throughout the apprentice journey, attending Apprentice and meeting really inspirational colleagues along the way has been so rewarding. So to be nominated and win the 2026 Apprentice Manager Award has definitely been a huge highlight for me.
I started at UKSBS as an apprentice when I was 18, so I'm coming up to 14 years with the organisation. So I take some pride in the longevity.
My proudest moment at UKSBS was being recognised for enabling change and bringing a positive and calm approach in a dynamic environment.
My proudest UKSBS moment is being recognised in the NEO programme for my willingness to pitch in, take on additional work and grow in confidence while supporting others.
My biggest proud moment of UKSBS was that I was on the front line of Sharp, gaining early hands-on experience with Fusion as one of the first staff members involved. I then supported the initial rollout by training others. Although it was challenging, it helped me bring strong relationships both internally and externally, and ultimately proved to be a very rewarding project.
So there you go, publicly things out on their Kent County Council did the same.
Oh man.
So yeah, they did a lovely shout out. A lot of different kinds of organisations again.
Oh wait, buddy.
Oh, we've got some, and also again, different organisations putting different things out. Even just individuals just putting their own thing out. And one thing we always like to spot, oh, that looks like a House of PMO sticker. So that's the team at DXC that also did the brilliant thing of putting buns and cakes, which is what we always like to see. And finally, one that I do want to pull out, which may not necessarily to do directly on International PMO Day, but was a few days before. And I'd just like to bring in Alison from Northwest Ambulance Service. They got in touch and wanted to celebrate International PMO Day. Hi Alison, how are you?
Hello. Well, thank you for the invite.
It's all right. So what did you get up to on International PMO Day?
So, well, we very much like some of the ones that you've just seen. We did try to keep it quite simple and focused on celebrating our people and our team. So raising the awareness of our team, but definitely through our people. So we kicked it off with we did a video which sort of summed up our delivery from last year, just to let people know what we've been involved in. And that went down really well. So we shared that across the trust. And then we did, very similar to what you've just seen, we did video clips of lots of team members saying what they enjoyed about working in the PMO, and that got some good feedback on social media. And then also we just did loads of social media. So we got our comms team involved and we got them posting absolutely all sorts about PMO. And we had a really lovely reaction, particularly on our Facebook page, our ambulance service Facebook page, our internal page. So we had someone just out of the blue post a nice little message to respond to say that we were an amazing team. They've worked with several of us over the years and were the driving force in making change happen and keeping projects on target and in budget. So we loved that feedback. So we shared that across the team. And then the very last thing, the picture that you've shared there very kindly is we had one of our team, Matthew. He was awarded the Rising Star Award at our Northwest Ambulance Service Awards, and that was a couple of days before. So when we got to International PMO Day, we tagged that on to absolutely everything we shared to show Matthew was our rising star. And he is our rising star, and the reason he's our rising star is he has built our in-house PPM tool. So that was why he's our rising star. So yeah, so we had a great day celebrating and we got loads of positive feedback, which was unexpected and very welcome.
All right, that's brilliant. That's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, you never know unless you put yourself out there and you get some lovely comments back. So, you know, job done, tick, well done. Yeah. And just to let you know, Alison also contributed to the blue light report. So if we shared that link in the chat earlier, but if you're watching this on live stream, you can go and download that from the House of PMO website under publications. But Alison told us a lot about what they're doing at Northwest Ambulance Service and doing lots of great stuff. So I'm not surprised, really, you got great feedback. But thank you very much, Alison, for sharing, and hopefully it will inspire you for next year, which is the second Tuesday in May every year. So have a think about that. So yeah, thanks for Alison for letting us for coming in and letting us know. Okay, so, thanks, bye. So we're on to Eileen. Right, what's this, Eileen?
So I thought we'd do some dodgy thinking. Yes, for the last session. So hopefully a serious message, but as ever, dealt. And I thought I'd better make sure we're talking about dodgy, not doggy. Okay, so just be aware, dodgy is what we're going to be talking about as we go through the slides. So just this whole kind of concept about what is dodgy thinking. Has anybody heard of a pre-mortem? So a number of people will have heard of a post-mortem, which is what we do after kind of something's happened. We pull it apart to find out what the issue was. This lovely guy, Dr. Gary Klein, wrote back in 2007. He wrote a paper for Harvard Business Review. And he says, actually, what we can do is we can use this concept called prospective hindsight. And if we look at a project at the, kind of use a time machine, go to the end of the project and think, well, if it all goes drastically wrong, what would we have done in order to make that happen? And if we come back to the current day, then we can actually kind of put some things in place to stop all of those bad things happening. So it's typically used in risk management, but actually can be used with a lot of things to kind of identify some issues. I think of some kind of quite specific actions that we can put in place to, as it says there about the pre-mortem, increase the probability of project success. So of course, because we're all about improving the chances of project success, on the next slide we talk about there are loads of opportunities for the PMO to be dodgy. Yes, so we obviously want to do that right at project starter, but even in monthly reviews. Now I have lots of conversations. We talked about it on International PMO Day. How many of us spend all of our time in our review meetings talking about what's happened, which, to be fair, you can do diddly squat about. What you need to start thinking is, what are we going to be doing in the next month, and how can we improve the chances of success so we can use it for those? Obviously, when we use it in benefits planning, when we think about some of the outcomes and benefits that we're expecting for the project, what can stop us kind of having that and get them in place? What kind of things might kind of do us? And again, come back and put those things in place. A portfolio review. So this dodgy thinking works at project program and portfolio level. So starting to think about, we've got some great ideas, but potentially where might people spend their time rather than actually kind of working on some of those kind of strategic projects that we're working on. And one of the things that also is that down at an individual level, you can use it for planning and preparing for doing your own kind of development to kind of make sure that whatever time you give to spend on your own personal development, you get the most out of it. Keep a hold of that thought for later. So, and it doesn't matter what level you are in the PMO. Yes, so I've got the next slide. Depends, it doesn't matter whether you're an administrator, an analyst, or a manager and director. You can use this dodgy thinking to really kind of help you improve all aspects of project success. So right from the kind of the very beginning, thinking, oh, typically when we get to the end, we'll have forgotten something. So actually, let's make sure we put that in from the planning. We've talked a bit about kind of making sure we've got kind of risk and issue management, dependency management, but even at the kind of the manager and director level, this approach to be dodgy, yes, actually kind of is where we start really adding that kind of value add, because we're starting to kind of do a little bit more thinking rather than just analyze some of the information that's already been providing for us. Really interesting when we're working at a portfolio or at a director level, yes, in terms of actually kind of really validating some of the assumptions that we've got, or actually some of the things when we talk about projects, we say the same thing every time. When we do this kind of pre-mortem thinking, we always think, well, this always happens on projects. Well, actually, if people are saying that, then there's perhaps something we need to do to stop that happening on all of the projects. And we may need some kind of fundamental changes to our processes, to our training, to our thinking, if we haven't kind of got those things in place. So really good, I would suggest. So what is this dodgy thinking, I hear you ask? So here we have the dodgy model. Right, there's nothing we like better than an acronym to help us to remember things. Okay, so really kind of straightforward about, actually, first thing we do is to actually kind of define the thing. What is it we're actually kind of pre-morteming? Who knew that pre-morteming was going to be a word? But what is it we're actually looking at? So is it the whole project? Is it a particular work stream? Is it a particular resource? Is it a particular problem? Let's kind of just define what that is. and then describe in a few words what that looks like when we failed. Yes, get that kind of really sinking feeling. Or if you're used to doing the hats, whose name the De Bono hats, this is the black hats, and in terms of thinking, do you know what's gone wrong with the project? And this is where it's really good, because you can start thinking about all of the kind of the war wounds that we've had of things that we've done before. But then we want to start thinking in terms of kind of, well, why did it go wrong? If we end up in that position again, what is going to have gone wrong as we've gone through the project or we've gone to this event? You know, kind of what's going to go wrong that avoid us getting that kind of great feeling of success at the end. And then we do a bit about kind of grouping the themes so we can kind of get some patterns. And the important thing is, you would never want to do any of this without actually coming up with some real actions. And you know, it's not just a thought process. It's not just something that we kind of, it's an exercise we do. There should be some really definitive things that we do as a PMO to support the projects and programs, or as an individual to kind of change the way things are done in our organization. And it doesn't have to be, you know, I'm not asking people to do a 2-hour workshop. Yes. So we can be quick and dodgy. Can't we, Lindsay, on the next slide? Yes. So, you know, literally, you can have a quick and dodgy conversation with anybody over the water cooler or in the coffee or at the beginning of a meeting, so that, you know, kind of a quick minute to define the thing, a quick minute to kind of have a description about what that might look like, 3 minutes to dig the causes, a couple of minutes to group the themes together, and then still kind of a big focus is kind of where your actions are going to go next. So let's have a quick, and Lindsay gave me such a small time, so I'm galloping through this. Let's have a quick look at how do we do it dodgy style. Yes. So hopefully you're all going to the conference. Yes. So that's the thing we're going to do our kind of or pre-mortem on. It's our attendance at the conference. Now, imagine if things don't go as planned. Now, if we just do just one click forward, Lindsay, what we're not talking about is not having a fab time. Because you will have a fab time. We always do. Whether you do 1 day, 2 days or 3 days, we always have a fab time. But imagine you get back to the workplace and your manager says, right then, so what value did we get from going to PMO Law conference and the Impact Engine fundamentals? What value is that going to bring to the organization? You go, oh, actually, oh, yes. Because the danger is, if you do that, you're not going to be allowed to come back next year, which would be a travesty for everybody. Yes. So what we want to do, if we had a whole lot of time, we can sit and play. But what I've done on the next slide is just talked about perhaps some of the things that perhaps we might end up saying, oh, I didn't know what I actually wanted to learn before I went there. So I kind of just turned up very passively, listened to all of the sessions. Yes. I didn't actually have any time afterwards. I was straight back into the workplace. I had all of those 400 emails to deal with, didn't have anything to do. I got a lovely notebook in my bag. We always give you a notebook, and you would see the pen is fab. Yes, did all of it in my notebook, but things actually stayed in the notebook. I ended up going to a session that I shouldn't really have gone to, but it was the nearest one, or I kind of sat down and was kind of having a coffee, so I didn't do things. And actually, it was great to meet with some of the people who I kind of met before, but I didn't feel as though I met anybody new. So all of those are kind of really kind of typical things. You can still have a fabulous time and still come away and think, I really could have got more out of the kind of the day if I'd actually done a few more things. And this is where it kind of becomes really important. So this is where we kind of group those things together and think about what your actions is. So if we go to the next slide, what we've done is we've kind of done the grouping together and thinking kind of, why is it perhaps we didn't get the most value out of the conference? Yes, didn't have a clear goal, not sufficient time afterwards. We didn't really talk to anybody, and we didn't actually take any action. So what we need to do is start thinking about, and actually doing it before we go there, is actually look at the program, the agendas on the website, set 3 learning goals before we actually go. Agree them with your manager in terms of, this is the reason why I'm going to the conference. This is what I'm going to learn. Yes. Put some time in your diary, and we say this to people who attend our training courses, put some time in your diary to revisit the things that you've actually kind of covered and plan how you're actually going to kind of use them. Yes. So think about 3 people when you come back to the office that you're going to have a conversation with. 3 people at the conference you can have a conversation with. So yes, there's Lindsay and I, but there's hundreds of other people, and you might not necessarily know the person, but you might say, I'm going to try and find somebody who has done this. I'm going to try and find, actually, I'm going to go into the kind of the House of PMO LinkedIn group and find somebody that I've kind of chatted with or has made a really good comment, ask them if they're going to the conference and plan them there. And then actually kind of commit to your team, to yourself, to your manager, that when you come back, that actually I'm going to do something. I'm going to have some specific things I'm going to plan in my 60 minutes and actually bring back into the workplace and try something. And it's an experiment. It may not be the, it might make a huge difference, but actually at least you're going to try, so you can see that actually I've gone to the conference and this planning, this pre-mortem I did has helped me get the most out of it. So there we go. Hopefully you'll all just be a little bit more dodgy going forward.
Thank you very much, and it's great that you actually bang on 1 o'clock. We're done, everyone. Well done, Eileen. I think we should put you on at the end more often, actually. So just to let you know, this is the next session that's coming up, 2nd of June. It's a virtual session, 5 p.m, and we'll be joining Eileen and Laura in that session. So that's it for today, everyone. Take care. See you soon. Bye. Whoosh, and that's it, everyone.